Everybody, welcome back to Sales Remastered. My name is Daniel and I'm your host. On this episode, I'm gonna give you a couple tips to help you save a bunch of time in your efforts of originating sales, whether it's an inbound, outbound, whatever kind of lead. These tips are gonna help you save your valuable time so that you could use it and focus it where it belongs, and that's where business actually is. And I think one of the greatest temptations that we face as salesmen is we sell ourselves, meaning that we sell ourselves on prospects or leads that sound like it could be possibly a deal. And sometimes we are blinded by the smoke, or maybe it's a sense of denial that we experience because we really need a sale at sometimes, you know what I mean? Like that, just to kind of break the seal, if you will, you have to start that process, and sometimes you just need that one on the board. And so I'm going to share with you a couple tips that have helped me and still help me to this day. And some of these techniques are going to seem like it's common sense, but you would be amazed how many of us don't consider it. And I'd like to know your input too, so let me know if you use any of these techniques. Let me know if you have a better technique. Leave the notes below, and let me see. All right, so with regards to my tips, first and foremost, it's understanding the objections that are going to be coming ahead. And it's actually easy to foresee what objections are going to happen. And I'm putting something together for my company, or my division rather, where it's going to be focused on melting objections before they even arise. And how the only way you're able to do that, meaning the only way you can address objections before they arise or come up, is if you know which objections are coming up. And you're going to notice that the sales process, from hello to congratulations, your loan's funded, it's typically the same process over and over and over and over. Now granted, you're going to have those situational or one-off situations that could have only happened with that type of loan or that property type or that type of income, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, it's all going to gear around the same exact steps, same sequences. And much like your kind of like your current path to get to school or get to work or get to your house, you have so many different alternative options, but typically you will stick to one of those options, knowing that you have alternatives in your back pocket, right, if you will. And so when you think about your path to work or to get coffee or go home or to grocery store or to the gym, wherever this constant path is that you take on a daily basis, you're going to notice that only a few random acts happen, like maybe an unforeseen roadblock or an unforeseen detour. But outside of that, everything else still kind of remains consistent. It always remains the same. And so I invite you to do a few things with regards to objections. I want you to pay attention to two parts. Number one is pay attention to your initial conversation. This is how you start to take control of the conversation. And I want you to notate any objections that you commonly face at the point of getting control of the conversation, so you can extract the right answers or the right information to sell them. And so what I'm talking about is basically your 1003. And I want you to notate any of the common objections that you get. I could think of a couple right offhand. Like, oh, Daniel, I don't got no time. Or Daniel, just save yourself some time and give me your lowest rate. Or what's your bottom line rate? Or I just want to know what your best offer is. Or can you do it for free? These are just objections you get right off the bat. And this is just part of the game. We should already know this. We should already expect this. And then depending on how far in the conversation you get, you'll have other objections, right? Like, oh, maybe I'm not in the market, or oh, my rate is okay, or oh, I don't think I can qualify. These are other objections that you can take note for. And then the second is your pitch, is your actual delivery. And again, write down the common objections that you face. Now again, just as I mentioned, you're going to have these situational objections that may come up that's only specific to that type of borrower, that type of income, that type of property, that type of whatever, that loan program. And those are one-off. So we'll visit that, when I roll out with the content, and I'll film it and make sure that I release it to you, so that way you can learn from it as well. But at the end, when you're actually doing your sales pitch, you're going to come up with common objections as well. Like, I need to talk to my spouse, or let me think about it, or that price is too high, or that cost is too much. These are common objections that happen at the end. And the reason why you're noting them down is because if you know they're going to come up, you can actually rephrase your scripting so that it actually addresses the objection before it's even announced. And if you want to see a good example of this for the initial conversation, because that's where all the magic happens, is the initial conversation. All my other content can show you how to properly deliver the pitch. But what you need right offhand in order to keep attracting that prospect to give you more time in that conversation is you need a quick, effective, and skillfully crafted script to open up the conversation, take immediate control, and hop in the driver's seat. If you want to see that in action, you want to see what that looks like, go to salesremaster.com. I'll leave a link below this video, and it's a free sales script that you can download. You can just request, put in your name, your personal email, and I'll email it right out to you after you do the CAPTCHA verification to make sure you're not no evil robot. And you'll get a copy of the script. You'll actually see it in the works, and you'll get an idea as to why it works. And I'm getting a lot of great feedback on this script, and I thank you guys for taking the time to actually reply back to that response and say, man, this is magic, giving me 1 month, 2 month follow-ups and saying, hey man, I've been using this script and just what a game changer. It's enabling us as salesmen to take over the conversation, to take control of the conversation. And what happens is when you take over control of the conversation, when you are in the driver's seat, you control the path you take. So like I was referencing, you only have so many given paths to reach a specific location. When you understand each and every path, and also when you are the driver, you select the path. And so if you know that there are unforeseen roadblocks or detours, such as these situational objections that happen on the one-offs, you can quickly detour onto another path that you already know is there, another path that you're already expecting to take if there's a detour, or if there's a roadblock. In this analysis, or in this analogy, this is going to be referring to the objections, the excuses, the reasons why we're currently not making sales today, or as many sales as we want to today. So I think that would be helpful. You want to consider that. And the second tip that I want to share with you is really understanding that your prospect has with them an energy and a momentum. And this is gonna show through the, I do a lot of sales over the phone, so I don't get to see them necessarily in person, but I'll give you my example. So I can read immediately what kind of energy or what kind of pace that the prospect has. If the pace is rather slow or moderate, then I can tell that they're not in a rush, and they're probably more in a position where they can absorb the information I share with them. And you'll know that they're at that pace because they're talking slow, they're actually asking you to wait, they're being very selective with their words. It sounds like they've crafted their conversation, so you could tell that they prepared, or crafted their questions, and you could tell that they prepared for that conversation. And then on the flip side, you got prospects who you could just tell are in a rush, like they're in a hurry, like they have somewhere to go. Maybe they're on the road, or maybe they got caught by surprise and they didn't know 1,900 of you and your competitors are going to call them the second that they hit submit or request on that Lending Tree website. And so now you just got an influx of people, and these people are caught off. So you have to be able to expect that. You have to be able to kind of foresee those roadblocks or those detours and quickly jump into that pace, right? And so I'm going to give you an example. If I came across someone, because I think this is very, very common, come across someone who's always in a rush, right? Time is very valuable, so I'm not going to get mad at them. And I don't think you should either. But you should actually be more kind of, you should adjust your availability to theirs. You're trying to earn their time, so be sure that they sense that. And so if they're in a rush and they're like, hey, Danny, you know what, I gotta go, just give me your best rate, and they're talking like that, then I'm gonna talk to them the exact same pace. I'm like, oh yeah, no worries, I'm actually gonna send that to you. I'm gonna use this email address right now, and I'm gonna send it your way. As a matter of fact, because I know your time is valuable, I wanna make sure that it is tailor fit to your exact needs. So if before I send it out, let me go ahead and confirm real quick, this is your primary residence? Yes. Any bankruptcies, foreclosures? And I'm going quickly through the declarations to make sure that I even have something to rush for, right? And that leads me to my third tip is you'll notice that a lot of the conversations right now around the 1003, the initial sales conversation, is actually built in the same kind of model or the sequence as a 1003. And so the 1003 starts off with property address, is a cash out rate term refinance, how many kids you got, what do you work, what's the name of your employer, what's the title, what's their phone number, what's your income, how much do you have in debt, how much do you have in assets. And so it's kind of in order, depending on your CRM and depending on your experience, you think that you should go in that order. And what I'm getting at is that the 1003 should sound like a conversation. It should never sound like an application. It should never sound like they're being interrogated. You know what I mean? Like this is not a robotic process that you want to give an impression to your prospect on. You actually want to make it sound like a conversation. And so it's helpful to, kind of figure out how to address or ask those questions in a conversational way. And so where I'm getting at, my punchline here, my big takeaway is that however you decide to chop up the sections of that 1003 to create a conversation-like experience, we have to keep in mind that the declarations, which is on page 3, your 1003, is probably one of the absolute most valuable pieces of that application. And the reason for that is because in any initial application, in order to save us time, what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out if the prospect has the 4 pillars to make a product, to make a loan, right? And those 4 pillars are what? Their income, right? That's their DTI. Without income, you can't make a loan. It's their credit. Without efficient credit, they won't be able to qualify for a loan. It's title, right? And title is any clouds on title, any hero loans, any unforeseen loans that maybe taxes put on their property. Without a clear title, we can't make a loan. And then of course it's always the equity in the property that plays a big deal. So we need to understand, is this even their primary residence? Is it a rental? When was the last time they appraised the home? Is the condition acceptable? Are you in the midst of any construction right now? And so what I'd like to do whenever I do a conversation is I like to migrate that declaration section of the 1003 to very early in my conversation. I don't start right off the bat. I'm like, hey, do you have any bankruptcies or foreclosures? But I make sure that I ask the questions that are important to make sure that I can go through my sequence and go through my checkpoints, if you will. And that's the kind of experience that I like to relate to my prospects, at least those who are giving me the time and actually discussing and having a conversation with me, is to make them feel like they're going through phases, right? Like, okay, well, before I go to the next phase, let me make sure we can even get that far. I'm gonna ask you a few basic questions. It's gonna let me know if I can even move forward with our phone call. And that is a very strong statement. That wording, that wordplay, that statement in itself is something that not too many can fight off, and that's why I like using it. But when you integrate the questions on the declarations into the initial portion of your conversation, you get to find out a few things, such as like, any bankruptcies in the last 7 years. Yes, okay, when? Because that may eliminate 90% of the products that I was gonna talk about to this prospect, right? Another question is there any open judgments or lawsuits that you're currently in right now? And again, that opens up clouds on title. It opens up the possibility of us not being able to complete the transaction. And then also, do you intend to occupy the property as your primary residence, right? And how will you hold title? Because now, if there's someone else on title, then I need to make sure that other person's even aware that this person's doing an application. And so there's so much value in that initial application, where if you save that declaration towards the end, what happens is you might be it that you may very well spend about 30 minutes in the conversation buttering up, getting them wet, getting them prepared, and then you find out, oh man, this dude just got out of the bankruptcy court yesterday. Now it's like, now I got to change up my whole entire, and then it throws you off your game, it throws you off your momentum. And so the key is that, when you get a lead, be thankful. Get a lead, put on your origination hat. And what I'm talking about your origination hat is, don't bring the luggage in with you. Don't start getting that underwriter eye. Don't start underwriting your leads to find out every single way that you could possibly kill it just because you had that one file that died and you're trying to be proactive. It's okay to be proactive, but don't be proactive so much where your negativity and your proactive underwriter eye catches every little red flag and then expands it, just completely magnifies a little small red flag to where it actually hinders you and it stops you. And then you stop your momentum, you stop trying to help, and instead you're actually trying to qualify. And I want you to avoid that because, you know, sales in itself, if you're not good at it, if you don't have no plan, if you don't have no strategy, it can become this roller coaster that's going to get you nauseous. And the only way to get used to this roller coaster is to sit in the driver's seat. And the only way to sit in the driver's seat is stay tuned to Sales Remastered. I hope this video has helped you. If this is your first time watching Sales Remastered, I appreciate your time. Consider subscribing. If you felt that I make any sense, go get a gander of the playlist and the other content that I have available, not only on this channel, not only on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, but also go to the website, salesremastered.com. Check out the blog section. It's called Inside the Mindset of Sales Remastered. And look at some of the blogs. Look at, you know, some of the content. You could see from my writings, you could see from my daily activity that I'm in the trenches with you. I'm not bougie. I'm not up here sitting on some, like, you know what I mean, some high pedestal saying that, oh, I'm a manager, you know, I haven't sold in 9 years, let me tell you how to do it. No, man, I'm actually in the trenches with you. I'm selling with you. I'm hustling right alongside with you. And you might ask, well, Daniel, why are you sharing all this shit with me? If I become so great, I could take your market share. It's because I'm confident in my game. I love the hunt. I love the psychology of selling and origination. And no matter what, no matter who I'm up against, it's going to be my delivery, my energy, and my attitude, and just these little nuances that I know that my competitors don't have. More importantly, I know that only strong and dedicated closers actually follow this channel to ensure that they practice their craft. And so if you're willing to do that, and you're willing to sacrifice that time and give me some attention, then in return, I would only expect you to do better than me, and I hope you do. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.